Hi, godly seers. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to this channel. So today we're talking about the gift of praying in other tongues, how to receive, why some people are struggling to receive. I don't know the answers. I'm just gonna talk about my experience of, when I've seen people kind of being prayed for, sometimes for hours, and nothing comes out of it, or people expressing how frustrated they are, that they've tried everything, is just not happening for them. And I don't personally believe that there's a formula. Maybe there is, I just don't know if there is. I've had different testimonies of people that were in the bath, trying to take a shower, minding their own business, and then decided to pray a little bit, and then they received the baptism of the Holy Spirit that way. I've had all kinds of, different things of how, people received that gift. Either way, when you receive it personally, I feel like it's always such a major thing, because when your gifts start to turn into, tongues, you will notice, and it's a very, very special moment that calls for celebration. I will share a little bit about mine. It's always something that I've heard other believers do. I'd never really gotten to a point where I was like, maybe I wanted to. I'm not gonna lie, I probably desired to, but I'd never really pressed so much. It was just something that was not, like, I'd not really taken time to sit down and think about, or what it would be like if when I can speak in other tongues. I low-key desired it, but I guess it wasn't on top of my priority list. And then one day I was going through a season of having terrible dreams, like serious nightmares. I tried to pray them off. I just couldn't get them out of my life. So I decided to give up some time in prayer and fasting. I think I'd only done like 2 days of dry fasting. And when I went to my pastor to ask him to pray for me over these dreams, he didn't pray over the dreams. Actually, I do believe that I received my breakthrough over those nightmares through the fasting I was doing, because I started to see visions and other dreams of breakthrough, and that situation was resolved instantly. But I remember him asking me, he said, look, there is a man of God in town. There is a prayer meeting going on in a particular church in Birmingham. I need you to go there. And I thought, okay, go there and pray with them. So I was so desperate and eager. I just grabbed my stuff, showed up at the church at the wrong time. Like, I showed up in daytime when I thought maybe the service would be going on, but there was no service happening at that point. So I went straight to the pastor's office. This was a very, big ministry back then in Birmingham. I'm not going to say the particular ministry. So I went into the pastor's office, and I remember there was the preacher that had come that was running the prayer program that week. I can't remember the exact name of that pastor, but I am tempted to think maybe his name is, Pastor Kato from Uganda. I think. I know he was a pastor from Uganda, but I don't even remember his name. So I walked in. I didn't see the pastors to that actual ministry, but the pastor himself, the visiting pastor, called me and said, oh, come here. He asked me to enter a room. Didn't ask me why I was there. There was already people there. I think there was 3 ladies that had come for prayers. I don't know what kind of prayer. Like, I didn't even know this. I feel like I just hijacked the whatever was going on. I just walked in. Was like, okay, sit down. We are praying for the gift of, we are praying for the gift of praying in other tongues. I was like, what? Like, that's not why I'm here. I don't know if I'm very much interested in that right now, because I've got bigger fish to fry. I've got bigger issues right now that I need you to pray for. It didn't give me a chance to say nothing. As I sit down, I just sat down next to these 3 girls and was like, pray. He led us into a very short prayer and said, when I stop, I need you to pray on your own. I need you to believe with all your heart that you're going to receive. Everybody will leave here praying in other tongues. I was like, how? So anyways, I decided to do whatever he was telling us to do, close my eyes, and I started praying. As you know, before you receive the gift of, praying in other tongues, it's just a very few people that can pray for a very long time. And this is one of the things that being able to pray in other tongues, that it helps us. It can help you to go for hours and hours and hours in a place of prayer without the exhaustion for me is the one of those things that can help me to stretch out, my prayers. Because when I'm praying in my understanding, sooner or later, the words dry out. But when you have the privilege of mixing the two, it is such a privilege. And, not being able to sabotage your own prayers because you're praying in a language that you do not understand. Even the devil can sabotage because he doesn't know, what you're saying. You're speaking the language of angels. You're speaking directly to God. So anyway, we started praying. I prayed and ran out. Within a few minutes, I'd run out of words. And I remember something within me switched and told me, look, start praising, start worshiping. I started worshiping, like by using words, not like in form of singing or music or anything like that. And then that dried out as well. And then I remember thinking to myself, actually, I didn't even think things were just happening so fast. I started saying one particular phrase, praising God, but I just kept saying, I was worshiping, I just kept saying, you are the Alpha and Omega. You are the Alpha and Omega, Alpha and Omega. I just kept saying that to God, saying it over and over and over again until my spirit believed it so much, until I started like actually seeing God as that Alpha, and Omega. Like, I know I'm in this situation where I've been asked to pray for the gift of tongues. I was not part of the plan, but I was like, okay, let's go anyway. And I just kept saying those two words, Alpha and Omega. And before, I've never seen something so magical like that moment. Can you believe I became so lost? I say like nothing else, just those two words. I started rocking and rocking, and I go louder and louder to the point that I lost myself in those two words. Just, calling on to God. I forgot my surrounding. I forgot where I was. Like, okay, I'm in this church environment. We pray. I forgot everything. I just kept saying those, like, crying out those two words repeatedly. And I can tell you now, to this minute, I can remember when the words that were coming out of my mouth, Alpha and Omega, changed to the point that I nearly paused as when I'm speaking out, my mind is saying you are the Alpha and Omega. But the word, the sound that was coming out of my mouth, I could not recognize. It was coming out in a different language. But within my spirit, I know that I'm saying you are those words. Like when I first speaking in tongues, I knew exactly what my tongues meant. I could interpret them. I don't even know if that counts for interpretation, because I knew exactly what Alpha and Omega sounds like in a language I've never spoken before. I'd never heard of this language. At first, I almost stopped as what is that? That's like when I opened my mouth to speak, what I want to say is no longer what's coming out. It's coming out sounding very, very different, like Arabic, or I don't even know what. And the pastor stepped in and said, that's it. That's it right there. That's it. That's tongues. I was like, what? So this is tongues? You're telling me this is tongues? I said, yeah. Don't stop. Don't get scared. Just keep speaking. And every time I kept opening, those words kept coming. I stood on it. I was like, even though I just know 2 words, I'll just write these ones. It's like, well, just keep practicing. Just keep on. I continue to worship with those words. And then it's after, when we finished it, I realized the other girls were still struggling. Actually, as a matter of fact, I don't even know if those people managed to receive. I don't know, because when I finished, they hadn't, managed to receive, the gift of tongues, so they were still kind of struggling. And I was like, over the years, I've asked myself, why was there that quick breakthrough? And I think now, looking back, I think maybe because I decided to take my own understanding out of it. I decided to be, open-minded. When my own words failed me, I was like, okay, let me turn to worship. Let me choose a few words that I can use to worship God, even if I don't have to use so. Because when they're like, pray until you receive the gift of other tongues. Like, I'm only going to pray what I know. And then that shame wants to come on you of, I'm repeating the same thing, or I don't even know what to pray. Or like, are you just going to keep, sit there and just be praying, oh God, just give me the gift? Are you going to be repeating that over and over again? I don't know. I don't know how it's happened for everybody, but I'm just saying to someone out there, maybe you could try, worshiping God. Maybe you could try, out your favorite phrases to God and just use those and soak yourself in those until, it takes on a new meaning for you. I don't know. But I'm just telling you how mine happened. For a long time, I stuck with those particular tongues. There weren't many. There were very, a few words, which I knew exactly, like I said, anytime I want to say Alpha and Omega, it would not turn out. Even after I walked out of that environment, I struggled to be able to say those 2 words without having to use, without them coming out as not sounding like the new language that I had received, or the meaning of that word, like the sounding of the word Alpha and Omega in tongues. I prayed those because they only that I knew. And I remember we encouraged her, look, just keep praying what you know. Anytime you have an opportunity to pray in your own prayer closet, use the tongues that you have. They may sound ridiculous because sometimes you'll be in congregations where people are speaking all kinds of tongues. Their tongues vocabulary is so wide, it's so huge, to the point like, I should pull out my 2-word version. No, it felt embarrassing, but the man of God was like, no. Keep praying. Tongues are like a language like any other language. You have to practice and practice. And what I can say is that over time, I started to see those tongues being enlarged, the vocabulary getting bigger. I started to get, like, tongues change as well, if you didn't know, over time. Like the tongues I started with, I don't know where they've disappeared to. Tongues change over and over. Mine anyway. Maybe yours, I don't know what your experience is. Mine have changed over and over and over again over the years. One time it will sound different, another time it will sound different. Even the tone that comes with it, sometimes I've been through a phase in life where my tongues have been sounding very violent. Like, probably, I don't know if it's a phase or whatever it is that I was having to dealing with, because again, I don't know what it is that I'm saying when I'm praying in other tongues. But yeah, so there have been a few moments in life where I've been praying in tongues and I've had the interpretation of what I'm praying about. When I've had the revelation, when I've had the interpretation for a few seconds, I will know the exact topic that I'm, tackling. But that has not been very common either. So anyways, the point of this video is that if you fall into that category of being, frustrated, you've tried and tried, you've been prayed for, you've tried different things, or when someone says, okay, since you don't pray in other tongues, let's go. And you're like, where do I start? Again, I'm not here to tell you how it's going to happen for you, or to say that mine is how, it happens. But I would say, try, venturing out in worship or praise using actual words. Like, even if you don't have to use the actual topic of what you're praying for, or, continue to ask God, like, okay, this is what I want you to do for me this time. Turn to worshiping Him. Try worshiping Him instead, and you don't have to worry about using so many different words. You could, just like me, use a few. Either way, I think if it's your time to receive, there's nothing that will stop you from receiving, even if you're not part of the plan, like how it happened to me or for me. Even if I wasn't thinking about it, it wasn't part of my priorities. When God is ready, even you can't say you're not ready. And I'm grateful to Him, because obviously, I don't know if He hadn't stepped in to just give me that gift. If maybe I would have gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, now I'm specifically praying to receive this. But yeah, keep desiring it, keep trying. He will figure out your own way. And when it comes, you will know about it. Thank you. Bye.